Hello, patrons, and welcome to the second Patreon exclusive On Your Own Challenge 2, where we're probably going to be doing a filter assignment inside of Synth. Thank you for being my patron, and let's get started. Alright guys, what he was just talking about is we're going to explore the low pass filter inside of Massive. Once again, if you're new, stick with Primer. But I'm going to be playing here. If you accessed the first On Your Own Challenge, you'll know how I initialized this Massive patch to sound very plain and basic. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from the waveform, or the oscillator section, over here to the filter and begin playing with it. So I'm going to start at middle C. And now we have two different low pass filters. Okay, maybe some of these are low pass filters too, like acid, but we definitely have two basic ones. 4 will mean 4 pole, which I believe is going to be 48 decibels per octave. It might be 24. I don't know. I have to read the manual. But anyway, this is a steeper filter, so it's going to cut out more bass, and I can demonstrate that for you in a second. So right now, you can see that I'm playing, but no sound's coming out, and that's because the filter cutoff is all the way down. But as I open it up, we get more of that full range sound. Okay, so here we have maximum buzziness. The buzziness starts to go away around here, and now we're definitely pushing it back until there's just really nothing left. He also wants us to experiment with different ranges. So that was middle C. What if I play up an octave? How does that affect? Let's bring it from the bottom to the top. Again, same, nothing done here. As opposed to now, he says that filters are like fingerprints, where they all seem the same at first glance, but dig deeper and you'll find that they have a different character. So let's play a little lower. One thing I'm noticing is that about a quarter of the way open, I can start to hear a signal with these with this lowest octave here, and then let me turn it up. Right around there. And I actually have to bring it down a little farther to cut off the higher frequencies, which is strange. You wouldn't expect that. Alright, so middle C again. Okay, we're not going to play with resonance yet, but I want to show you the difference between this low pass 4 and the low pass 2. Listen for the bass range. That brings more high frequencies into it. And the reason why is, I was thinking of it backwards. The low pass filter, as you look at a logarithmic frequency graph like your typical one, on your left side you have the bass, but the low pass filter goes like this at a slope, right? So the 4 is a steeper slope, whereas the 2 is a less steep slope. I think the 2 is a 12 dB per octave, and then the 4 would be a 24. That makes the most sense. So if we have 2, the slope is more open, so more high frequencies come through. But if we have it on 4, it's steeper. People will tell you that the less steep the slope, or the less poles, or whatever, however you want to put it, the more musical the filter. But sometimes you really want to chop stuff out. So that's up to you, exactly what kind of effect you want to have. So back to the 4, as opposed to 2. There's definitely a little bit more there in the higher range. Definitely. So that's that. And then let's check out the acid filter, because this is supposed to be an emulation of the TB303 filter. And you can hear that it definitely has a low passing effect, but it also sounds like it has some resonance on it as well. It definitely has more of a point, which I can demonstrate for you right now if you want to see in the other filters. Hear how it's a little bit more nasty. This one's a little bit more smooth, where the acid is definitely a little bit more, has a resonance on it. So let's compare the low pass 4 with some resonance. Here it's a much more similar effect as opposed to nothing. A little bit of resonance. Compared to the acid with no resonance. Pretty similar. Pretty similar. So you can spend all the time you want, once again, in different ranges. But, you know, in terms of a basic bread and butter filter, this is what you want, and then you can control your resonance independently. Okay, so that's the first part of it. And the second thing we want to do is put some different waveforms through it. So here we're putting through a saw. Let's try a square. You know, of course, a lot of bass in that lower range for the perfect square. It's just really not a huge night and day difference between these two, especially when they move. But the low pass 2, which I'm assuming to be a 12 dB per octave, which means decibels. So for every octave higher you go, this filter should cut out 12 decibels with the low pass 2. And then for every octave higher you go for the low pass 4, let's say you go from 500 hertz to 1000 hertz, it should cut off 24 decibels by the time it gets to that next octave up. So yeah, I don't hear them very different. We can also, this is going to be, let's see, we got to go to pulse width modulation to play with some waveforms that we know. Narrow pulse. This should remind you of the centaural exercises. Pretty narrow pulse, and then, but I think centaural uses a 4-pole filter like this. I think so. So I already showed you what the resonance does. It kind of has the effect of bringing the volume down a little bit while giving it a point. It's sort of a trade-off. So instead of just a slope, you have a little peak. If you're familiar with EQs, that's pretty much exactly what it does. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, you want to put some crazy, like a polysaw. Sounds like bagpipes or something. See this? The intensity knob almost has the effect of a filter. Sounds pretty similar. Not exactly the same, but not massively different. A little resonance. Oops. Yeah. So the last thing we're going to do is program a couple bass patches. So once again, I'm going to go back to my initialized patch, and Make sure I'm playing down in a low range. Let's see. So I don't want all that buzziness. So I do want some kind of filter. In Synth, you're going to go from the top to the bottom, which makes sense. And again, this is why a lot of people get confused. Because if you have a filter down, it doesn't make any sound. You're like, what? So start it open and then bring it down. Sounds pretty good. But I think we're just supposed to play with just the cutoff and maybe the oscillator here. So that's pretty good for a bass patch for me. We have the attack already down. We can have it fade in. And remember, if we're bringing down the filter, we should kick the volume up a little bit. It's kind of cool. You know, it has sort of like a fade-in effect. So let's save it. Save as, today's the 18th. Let's call it fade bass. Or maybe just call it bass fade. Okay. Another thing we should do, we could put a little fade out on it like that, but we need to make sure that we only have a monophonic sound. So monophon and then legato triller, so you can do something like this. It's more like your classic Moog response. Not sure the difference between these two. Once again, I need to be on the manual. So that's our first patch. Let's just save it. And let's go back to init. And come up with something different. I might want to do something. Let's do something with the acid filter. Since it's you know, we're still playing with filters. I don't want to get into distortion or anything. Remember, I brought it up from the bottom now. Let's do a square. Let's do something with pulse width. Resonance doesn't do a ton, does it? And we could probably get into modulation a little bit. Like, there's probably a way, of course, to track velocity to the filter cutoff, which means how hard you hit it. But the point is to go slow, and plus I still need to read the manual, so yeah. But this is a little bit of a different patch. I think just a little bit of release might be nice. And I think our pitch bend's still at the same. So yeah, the release kind of gives almost like a little bit of a reverb sound. Cool. So yeah, let's save it. Bass. It's kind of like it's an acid bass. So that's it, man. On your own too, you know, explore these different filters. Explore the combinations of volume. Again, if we open up, it's just a little bit louder, so bring it back down. As opposed to this. You know, in our, we're not really hitting this volume very hard because we turn these down. So with a single oscillator, you could turn it up, you know, so you're getting more of a healthy level. You can check here in the DAW meters, we're peaking around minus 11 dB full scale, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being my patron. Tell a friend about it. And today should be Monday for you. So on YouTube, there will be the lesson 2 for everybody to see. So go check that out. Hope this is helpful. Leave a comment, and I'll see you next week. Peace.